Hello and namaste. I am your host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Was that bell just now too loud? If yes, please comment and let me know, because I don't have a good idea how loud things are turning out. Welcome to the show. I am the discombobulated, hippie, new age, postmodern, transcendental mystic, fictional character that is your host for this audio blog podcast experiment known as the Almost Daily Zencast. I titled it The Most Common Obstacle, and I subtitled it something, 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 something. Which I'll check in a second. I'll double check. But I want to talk about the most common obstacle that I have encountered in real life, and also in what you would call ancillary or just sort of allegorical sources from others that have had this similar experience. And in terms of how people respond to the I want to see the subtitle-y bit, but it won't show it on the page right now. Okay, well, that's a fun little discovery. If you're on Sprecher, you could be listening live to my show any of the random ass times that I come on Sprecher and podcast. No, in the future, I do intend, honestly and earnestly, to figure out what the best schedule is so that those who would be interested in following it on the regular. But in the meantime, just download it whenever you get it. Which, by the way, thank you and huzzah and namaste. I just realized that we're very quickly approaching 800 downloads. Of course, I'm not really sure how that metric is being measured on the website, but still, it's a nice little number that's ticking upwards, and for that I say thank you kindly. Keep listening. I'll keep making these rambly ass diatribes when I get the time and chance. So, oh yeah, all the usual introductory stuff. Music is from Free Music Archive. The show is made possible by your generous donations on my PayPal page. My Patreon page. And thanks to everyone that has made my life possible. Okay, so as you may have noticed, if you're a listener that's crossed over from either from social media or from randomly bumping into me in real life, I'm an enthusiast of discussing the very introductory notion of meditation. What's up with that? What is that thing? Because I'm often asked, people do notice that I get a bit worked up about meditation, and they're like, what is it that gets you so worked up about it? And genuinely, it's a triumvirate of things. One, it works. Like, it does good things for your mind and your body and your soul, which is hard for me to say because, I'm a human being that once believed in the soul only as defined by the Catholic Church, and then really radically chose to not believe in the soul, and then didn't know what to believe about the soul, etc. So it's slow and gentle medicine that is organic to the human phenomena. All right? And you don't have to go very far to find interesting, potentially pseudoscience debunkable. I don't know. I don't have the resources nor the time to debunk everything that's on YouTube or to verify it, right? But I've seen a smattering, and some seem reasonable. And I'm not taking them as evidence. I'm just suggesting that there is a confluence of places all over the place, from ancient texts indicating that people claimed to have an understanding about this all throughout history in different ways, in all different cultures in different ways, and that, well, when it comes down to something like meditation, it is a practice, and it's sort of just, once you understand that I'm not just using the word casually or as an indicator, that it literally is like playing the flute. The more you sit and drill and work with it and do it wrong and suck and fail and then learn and then get better, the better you will be and the more amazing you will sound, right? And I'm not claiming anything here. I still got my training wheels on, I'll be the first one. First of all, for those who are new to the show, let it be known, I'm the first person that acknowledges that on the face of just about anything that I say, there's an edge of like, it's a little on the border of crazy, right? Like, because I always take things to this extra degree. And I want you to understand that I'll be the first one to acknowledge that whenever we stumble into a conversation rabbit hole that gets to a little crazy place, okay? And that I do not say these things lightly. That's all I'm gonna. And I'm not claiming anything. That's the other half of that disclaimer. I'm not claiming, and I've said it a million times, I'm not claiming to be enlightened in any way. I do think that the enlightenment thing might very well be the right thing. And that's based both on experimenting with practice and reading personal descriptions of people who have attained high levels of master level meditation and what they've experienced, etc. And the history of the movement around the world that has a lot of cohesion in sort of the way people who throughout history who are serious meditators, the way they talk about the world, both in terms of nature and what is earth and the sky and the stars and the blah, and the way they talk about the world of people. What is society? What are we here for? What are we supposed to do about this? What is the issue? Why are there problems? What is the problem? What is the root of the problem? And how do we solve it? Meditators have a pretty cohesive answer to what is like the primary solution, and it never varies, in part, arguably, because those who have meditated that intensely have that level of confidence that if it is done, then the right things will be in alignment. It's like, what's the best analogy? Let's say you eat healthy and jog once a week, and play tennis with your friends from college once a month and go to the gym, 3 times a month and lift the weights a little bit. Right? Whether you're a guy or a gal, you've gone to a certain thing of like, oh yeah, it feels better. I feel more energy. And then it sort of peaks out, right? And you're like, man, why don't I look like the guys on the Baywatch movie 2017? That's because you need to radically alter your diet, totally change the way your body functions, which impacts your sleep and a bunch of other things. In order to get that rippling muscle thing, you have to put a lot of effort in. And it isn't just about lifting a lot of mass on the machine. There's nuance to it. So I digress. The most common obstacle people point to is, and this is cliche because it's already been a meme, right? Like I didn't make it, and God, it's been a social meme in real life and other media, in other forms, in other ways of communicating the meme, probably throughout history. Maybe it's cliche in a meme because it's true, but the only obstacle is you. The only obstacle is yourself. And so the most common statement about the obstacle that I hear from folks when I have conversations about meditation, either in person or in, message boards, which is kind of a lie. I don't go on message boards. I don't go anywhere other than Facebook. I don't have time. Ain't nobody got time for that shit. Ain't nobody got time for Facebook, yo. I don't got time to make this podcast. My friends, my brothers and sisters. But I digress. I tried meditating, but I can't. I can't control my thoughts. I can't shut down my thoughts. I can't turn off my thoughts. I can't unwind my thoughts. I can't predict my thoughts. That's an interesting one. All of it labels of control or kind of like an oppression of the mind, or a destruction of the mind, or a smothering of the mind, or etc. You get the picture I'm painting, I hope. I used a lot of them words there for you. And I get that. I, as a human being, when I speak to people, and this is something that is easily dismissed, I'm sure, by them, and by that I mean it's just not the very first thing that they're thinking. They're thinking that I'm being an ego-driven know-it-all that thinks that, a little breathing and some sitting in silence is going to solve all their fucking problems. And it's not, but it is. It's not, but it is. But it's not. But it is. But it's not, right? And it's a catch-22 of catch-22s. Because, and here's why. Here's the nitty-gritty. People are confused and bemused and mind-blown by what meditation is or is not. And there's a lot of other people on the internet talking about it, and I'm not claiming to be any smarter or specialer than them. I'm just a jackass that's done a lot of research. And, and that research includes a lot of time meditating. Which I also then took a long time, long periods, and by periods I mean like years and a half, many months, to be not a meditate and not be a snob or caught up in it or whatever, etc., etc. And also to explore and experiment and to try on different thinking hats. But what's my point? People think it's about shutting up the little chatterbox in your head, and it's not, folks. It's about radical acceptance, recognition, acknowledgement, and dismissal. That is what I mean by abdication. Because I've said that to a lot of people over the years. Over them years, folks, over them years, us old-timers, we end up having the same conversation over and over and over again. Not because we're insane, but because people ask the same silly questions. The mysteries of life can be boiled down to, hey, it's beautiful. Oh, why does the rest of it suck? B, why does it hurt so much? C, the fuck is going on? Is it real? I don't understand. Somebody kill me now. And that's sort of it. And then at that point, people either give in to sheeple mode because it's the most comforting way to survive through it, or they have a radical outburst of the ego in disguise of some spirituality and become, crazy profiteers or whatever. Joel Osteen, or however you pronounce your crazy ass last name. Not pointing fingers. You who is not living in a glass house should be the first person to throw the stones at the people who live in the glass house. I don't know if that works or not. That's me trying to spin some spoofy, motify play on biblical passage. No, I'm not a shock jock out to just upset Christians. I'm hoping that they'll question and explore their faith based on my constant reminder that I'm someone who was raised in a version of Christianity. I know there's all that infighting about Catholics not being Christians, but bless your heart. Settle down now. Ain't nobody got time for that shit. So, meditation can be really overwhelming. I can assure you I know the rest of this from personal experience. Meditation as a practice, which might be the most important word I've said to anyone about any of this at any given time, including right now, as you listen to me, my dear, dear friend of the interwebs. It's a practice. And a practice... You ever watch a really interesting movie that's really hardcore about sports, and there's always that intense montage where they really gotta fucking double down on their efforts to get half-ass good, to be the team that can almost break through and then win the sports ball thing, right? What is that? That takes practice. Somebody said something really interesting in my presence in real life recently. Something about results. If you keep making bad choices, you'll keep executing poor actions and you'll keep getting bad results. Also, another version, there was something else said in this conversation I had with your people. Pooh. It's escaped me at this moment. So I digress. Practice is an endurance strategy or tactic, or it's more than those things. And to get through it, you got to burn through some boredom. But I can attest you personally, and I'm not healed of, it's not like I have no crazy story to tell, all right? Other than I feel better, and I've confirmed it twice with 2 long periods in my life of deep, committed, meditation is the most important thing in my life. Everything else comes second. And that includes anything that my ego makes me feel I deserve or really want and crave really hard. And it's, it was the healthiest time of my life. It was the sanest time of my life, especially the first time I did it when I was rather youngish in my mid to late 20s. And in having returned to it for a third time, which is interesting, I never really thought about it. It's a third returning, as I'm doing just now this year, in a very I'm going to step it up as much as I can really hard. I can't claim any, magic superpowers. I can assure you that anxiety, simple mundane things, are gone in a way that no pharmaceutical could ever have done for me. And I'm stereotypical, uh, you know, this generation sort of poster child in a way. Early on, I was diagnosed as potentially ADHD, like they approached very gently and then got shooed away by my very stern mother, who did not think anything was wrong with me. That I might be on the spectrum. Who knows? Maybe everyone's on the spectrum. Maybe the people peddling the chemtrails theory are right, and that's what's putting everybody's babies on the spectrum. And maybe that's fucking us all right now. Who knows? I have a theory about that is on point, but I don't want to introduce right here at this moment. But it's very pertinent because it applies to everything. And that gets psycho, right? And it gets borderline crazy. I'm the first one to admit to you that at first glance, especially if you get me going and you give me some bare bones, you ask me some direct and sort of otherwise difficult to answer questions, and not just some like point your finger questions about meditation and whatnot. I get at some bare bone things that I intellectually think are true, and that I think I've phenomenologically, I've had some experiences in my life to confirm some truthiness. Not absolute hardcore, but like I'm jealous of my friends, both in real life and just in the species family, who claim and can even point to some evidences that they were abducted by aliens. And I don't mean to say that because that sounds rather petty, to say I'm jealous of them. And plus, I hope I'm not forgiving myself. I hope I'm not repeating myself too hardcore right now. But like I've known a handful, a 3 or 6 number of people throughout my life that, and who knows, maybe they were just fucking with me. But that sort of out of the blue, but with that sense of energy of trust and confidence, like they felt comfortable around me enough to confide this in me and not feel too terribly judged. Maybe because I sound pretty crazy with meditation nonsense that I peddle to people constantly. But they swear up and down that they were picked up, and that they were taken to a spacecraft somehow through methods that were mystifying and confusing, and might as well have been described as magic, and then whisked away somewhere where they can't quite remember what happened, and then there's often sort of like either I don't want to remember or I'm in denial of it, or weird stuff, and then they get brought back and they will look you dead in the eye. At least these people that I know, the ones that I've had the opportunity to have this kind of conversation in person, and shout out to any of you if you happen to be the ones that I've had this conversation with and end up tuning into these podcasts. Much love to you. They'll look you straight in the eye and say, I believe that this is true in my life and it happened and I don't know what else to tell you, buddy. And I take their word for it. I don't doubt that it is true in their life, and I have no argument. I have no evidence and no way of proving that it isn't. I also don't know what it is or what it means, especially if based on what limited information I was given. And absolutely, it totally could be aliens. It could be our logical and linguistic misnomering of some other kind of phenomena that our body can only partially perceive or interpret correctly or understand at all, happening to us through different dimensions. And many people will be like, well, that could still be aliens. I'm like, yeah, totally do. But I'm saying it could also totally not be aliens. And I'm not arguing against my alien friends. I'm not trying to turn this whole episode into that. Wow. What is this episode about? Belief manifests. Okay, and we've talked about it before on the show. When it comes to meditation and the obstacle, my brain just won't stop. My brain won't stop. Well, it's not about trying to make it stop. So check in with what you believe and what you're thinking about meditation, as a sort of meditation, and just acknowledge these thoughts. And acknowledge that they are just thoughts, and that they neither own you, nor control you, nor are they you. Don't try to control them. Pin them down for a hot second and say, hey, thought, I see and hear you. Let me try to put this in a different way. I think mothers understand this approach. I think that's maybe why mothers and women in general have drawn to meditation and yoga and practices like this a little bit more readily in life overall, as a general statement about gender. And forgive me, I hate to draw distinctions and generalities and blah, blah, blah. That's not what my jam is. You guys know. But thoughts are a bit like your children. Your imaginary, cartoon thought bubble, sentences that you tell yourself, but that sometimes they sort of just come at you. Especially once you've told them to yourself a few too many times. Because thoughts aren't just words in a sentence strung together to make a few sentences or an abstract. You know what I'm saying? Meditation is not the act of controlling or blockading or turning off your thoughts. It's of acknowledging and healing and letting go of your thoughts in terms of how you practice, so that you may eventually, through practicing the healing abdication of thinking of each thought, especially, mind you, forgive me, I forgot to grab a glass of water or make myself a tea before this podcast, and I am paying for it with my vocal cords and the dryness. So, and of course you will fail if you indulge in self-defeatist circular logic about how you can't meditate because you can't achieve the objective of stilling your thoughts because your thoughts go around in too much circles, or you have too much anxiety, or you have too much of this, or too much of that, and that you can't do it. What you're doing is telling yourself that you can't do it. Your first step, any good guru. Oh my God. What a way to ruin a podcast. I'm going to do it, you guys, live on the air and forever in history. I'm going to run to the kitchen and get myself a glass of water. There's an old saying from back in the golden days of radio. The only kind of bad radio is dead radio. Don't leave the listeners hanging. And I just did that. Sorry. I couldn't talk and I was like choking up on it. Amateur podcast learning moment 101. Always have a tasty beverage of the fuck you up alcohol beverage kind, unless of course you're safely at home and you're not going anywhere for the rest of the day and you have enough hours plus 4 or 5 more hours of sleep and recovery time to overcome the BAC to body weight ratio of your consumption, because otherwise you're, even in the next day, if you, for those who know, stay up too late, you're risking yourself and the safety of others. PSA brought to you by My Own Life Fuck Ups and Learning the Hard Way. That is why I can speak with the authority that I dare to speak with about meditation. I didn't have to go somewhere and pay someone a lot of money to learn how to meditate, because plenty of people have written great books that distill the fundamentals of what meditation is. And any real, genuine guru will tell you that it is as organic to you, the human being, as it is for the cat to purr. The cat does not need to buy books in the cat kitty bookstore about how to purr right, or correctly, or most beautifully, or whatnot. Now, a book on how to sing might be neat on a technical level and informative, and maybe even useful, but a book on meditation is great. I'm not dismissing meditators who write, and or teachers and or gurus who write books. What's fascinating about it, and from what I understand, because I've read a lot of them, okay, and there's great respect to those who are teaching great teachings, and then there's like a wag your finger at everybody else who's just full of shenanigans, because there are, as there always tends to be, because this is a game of ego. What happens when you meditate? Well, in the beginning, whether it's by repeating a mantra over and over again, and when you're doing it silently in your mind, which is actually a very challenging way to begin as a beginner, although it's not the most challenging thing you can do overall in terms of things to do in meditation. I know there are very highly complex meditation techniques out there handed down from centuries ago. So I'm talking just at those at the beginning level who want to get started and want to understand that ultimately, what is all the hubbub and why is it worth investing time in meditation? And that's that it connects you or reconnects you or reminds you, it's really the best word, of your much more natural state. Of deeper connectivity to self, to the body, and to your relationship to your body. You are not your body. We all sort of know, because we talk about having a body. That person has a great body. That person has a horrible body. We have our body because it is not us. We are not it. It's just a trip to think about, and that's what you're trying to root yourself in, so that you experience the world from a place of being connected to that. And I get it. Everybody who puts up the most primary obstacle, it's one of the most effective obstacles. I can't because, insert here the whatever reason. You know why you can't? It's because you keep saying the word can't. So I was going to say, meditate on how you can. Because you can. Everybody can. Anybody can. All kitties can purr, except tragically for those who can't for some freakish genetic reason or for some accident and or surgical reason, right? Like 99.9% of the kitties can purr. And know how to do it beautifully, or they know how to be a good kitty, and maybe not good quantifiably in terms of behaving the way you want them to, but they can be an amazing and beautiful and super cute and just be a kitty, and that's usually including the things you don't like, because they don't give a shit. They're busy being a kitten. The human being has been distracted from its true purpose, dare I say, from its true calling, from its true activities that are organic and natural and good for us to be doing in nature. Now we sit in boxes and then climb into boxes that drive to other boxes. I get it. I've struggled, I've failed, and I've also, returned to practice. To overcome this obstacle, you have to just acknowledge that it is just you telling yourself that it can't be done. And that maybe you're hiding behind that, and you're hiding behind the sort of flattened down on purpose miscomprehension of what you interpret meditation to be about in terms of activity. Well, okay, I don't want to sound too much of a downer. On overcoming these things, the very first thing is just start saying, every time you have that impulse to say, I can't, because of whatever the reason, start saying, I can, in spite of whatever the reason. Especially if it's one that's quite painfully, obviously, your own self in your own mind. Okay? Let's look at this. Even if you were a materialist, non-spiritualist, atheist that accepts that whatever other cuckoo nonsense, new age woo-woo is going on around meditation, and those who meditate, meditating clearly has basic fundamental health benefits through the reduction of stress and the promotion of the body's natural systems to produce healing substances that our body manufactures, but under stress kind of like tightens down on to save up on them and not let them get overtaxed, right? Or whatever. There'll be all kinds of reasons why we get blocked up on our neurobiology. Meditation is about radical acceptance. What are you accepting? Your thoughts. What are your thoughts? Your thoughts are not just sentences, they are your mind self-expressing itself to whom? Itself. That's a bit too self-referential, right? That's a bit too compact to really unpack and make sense. But let's stick with it for a second. The mind is expressing itself to itself. For what purpose? To understand itself? I suppose. And now this gets to the heart of meditation and why anyone can do it. When you engage in radical acceptance of whatever thought, without reacting, without feeling guilty, which is a reaction to a thought, without feeling association, without feeling attachment, as any good Buddhist would commonly say, as Buddha himself probably would have said in whatever his native tongue was. Without reacting, which is a form of attachment, by the way, without reacting, overreacting, judging, just letting the thought be, and truly looking within. This is what ultimately happens, expressed as best as I can express it to you in English, and in the last 6 minutes of today's episode. And here's why it works. And I'm not talking about magical powers, although some ancient writings indicate that with some magical effort, there is magical results. And also, I'm the kind of crazy person that says, hey, life as it is, born naked, out in the woods, is magic. And we've always thought of it as magic, by the way, until we started paving it all over. But life as it is, even born in this urban sprawl, is magic. We've just been talked out of agreeing to call it that without feeling silly about it. Except for all you cool, crazy magic people that are magical. And also, yes, we have to be careful, because if things are magical, then, whoa, things are magical, and that can get a little weird. And one should never dabble too nonchalantly in things one does not understand. But I use the word magic in the most innocent and organic. And if I may borrow a term from the Chinese line of Buddhist traditions, without mind. And in the very strictest of terms of a human personhood identified, ego structured, overlorded minds. Okay, without mind, nature, life, capital L, capital I, capital F, capital E, has long existed without ego mind. And in a way, what we're trying to do is reintegrate that process, which exists and resides and is natural and organic and inherent in us already. And it is not some exotic, esoteric, difficult to describe thing that we need to somehow attain. Your phenomena of being deep within yourself is revelatory. Arguably, that phenomena is revelation. Because that phenomena deep within inside of yourself, once you set aside the filters that you might be clinging to from external society, and I just missed it. 4 minutes and 20 seconds left in this episode's got to rack it up. I'm totally behind. It's already 4:05, 4:04, 4:04. So yeah, I'll leave it hanging on that sort of thought and tell you that begin with that. If you've been talking yourself out of it, self-talk, we do it. You got to watch your self-talk. Somebody made that meme. It's a really pretty meme too. I can't remember which wizard it is from which movie right now off the top of my head, but one of those wizards is doing the cool wizardy gesture with the magical left hand, the projecting hand, and planets and stars and asteroids and little bits of cosmic dust are flitzing around his hand, and around him, around this wizard guy, and I can't remember which wizard, but it's cool, badass one. It's really relaxing, groovy. It says, "Be mindful of your self-talk. It is your conversation with the universe. You're telling the universe what you think of yourself and what you are." And that shit is real. So who wouldn't want to learn how to gently forgive and let go of all the negative bullshit? To recognize it as such. See, it's that simple. In your mind, when you're busy making excuses about why you can't meditate, shake it off, take a moment, take a deep breath, hold it, let it out, and say, hey, in your mind, that thought was bullshit. Hello, thought. I see you, your thought. Shoo now, go away. You don't exist anywhere else but as a thought I had. And that shit takes practice. That takes practice, like learning how, and it's hard. It's like learning how to ride a unicycle. It's that hard, not because of any physical effort, right? Yeah, I'm using it as analogy. It's that hard because you're really trying to, like an angel balancing on the head of a pin, do something by not doing it. And we have been pummeled into the ground to believe that that's really bad and that you can't do it and that you know, all these things are wrong. But I'm out of time, so I shall stop rambling. I hope that this episode was interesting and engaging and insightful, and that if you like it, you will tell other people about it. And if you weren't aware, it's available on iTunes, Podcast Revolution, I think it's called, and a handful of others. Just search on the Google. I think you can find it. Peace, love, and grooviness be with you. Literally trying to do my unauthorized best to send you love and Reiki energy. I'm sure that offends all the licensed Reiki masters. I just have never been able to afford to take a Reiki class, yo. You guys charge a lot. Hey, out there, any fans that are also Reiki practitioners want to sponsor me somehow and like give me free Reiki lessons? I think I'm a gifted savant with magic hands at Reiki/massage therapy. I don't know. I could be wrong. I could be making this up just for comic effect. I don't remember. Peace. Be good humans. I love you. Good night, Seattle.